There are a lot of reasons as to why this upcoming 2024 first-round playoff series between the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks could be even more exciting than their past two playoff meetings back in 2020 and 2021. Well, first, the head-to-head matchup between the frontrunners for both teams is already must-watch TV. For the Clippers, they have two-time NBA champion Kawhi Leonard, who's just had his healthiest and most efficient regular season in quite a while. And for the Dallas Mavericks, they have Luka Doncic, arguably the brightest young star in the NBA today, who's just had an MVP caliber regular season. But this time around, the secondary stars you'll find in this series are equally compelling, with Kyrie Irving, Paul George, James Harden, and Russell Westbrook. And between all those six players, we're talking about a combined 47 All-Star appearances, 2 MVP awards, 2 Finals MVP trophies, and a grand total of 6 scoring titles. Which is why it's not that hard to understand why so many people believe that the winner of this series could really have solid odds to come out of the Western Conference. So what's good everyone, it's Real Balls here, and in this video, let's break down the Mavs vs Clippers matchup, what we can actually expect from this playoff series, and who I'm actually picking to advance to the second round. Let's get to it. The Mavs and the Clippers actually faced each other 3 times in the regular season, with the Clippers winning the season series 2-1. But it's worth noting that all 3 games actually took place before Christmas, which was basically weeks away from Dallas becoming the team that it is today. Plus, there are also a lot of random reasons not to place too much focus on their 3-game sample size. Well, their first meeting this season was actually James Harden's 3rd game as a Clipper, while Russell Westbrook was still in the starting lineup alongside him. And in that game, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving combined for 71 points on 62.5% shooting from the field in an 18-point blowout win for the Dallas Mavericks. But then, in their second meeting 2 weeks later, the Clippers returned the favor, beating Dallas 101-88, which actually marked the Dallas Mavericks' worst scoring output in a game for the first 3 months of the season. Although it's worth noting that during that game, the Mavs actually started Richaun Holmes at center, as they didn't have either one of Derek Lively and Maxi Kleber available, which actually resulted in Ivica Zubac having an easy double-double. But all in all, it was Paul George who led the way for the Clippers in that game with 25 points on 40% shooting from behind the arc. But the third and final meeting between these two teams was actually the weirdest, as in that game, the Clippers didn't have Paul George, while the Mavs didn't have Kyrie, Derek Lively, Maxi Kleber, and Josh Green. Well, the Mavs kept it close, as it was even a 1-point game in the 4th quarter up until Kawhi put up a 9-0 scoring run, which fueled a 9-point win for the Clippers. Again, LA won the season series, but still, my biggest takeaway from those matchups is that in the 2 games that they played together versus the Clippers, Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving actually combined to average 64, 10, and 8 on 54, 43, and 100% shooting splits. Give them the new supporting cast that they have right now in the playoffs, and you can just imagine how much better this tandem can be against the Clippers. But to be fair, Kawhi Leonard himself has been a different kind of animal for the Clippers as well this season. In year number 13, Kawhi has actually played a career-high 34 minutes per game in 68 appearances, which is the 3rd most games he's played in a season, and he's done that while also shooting a career-best 52.5% from the field and 41.7% from deep, which is also the 2nd-best 3-point mark of his career. Well, Kawhi hasn't played a single minute since the beginning of April due to persistent knee soreness, so he definitely had enough time to rest before Game 1 of the playoffs. But then again, the problem is, Kawhi just played one of the most loaded seasons of his career at 32 years old. So in this series against the Mavs, I think the Clippers definitely have to rely a bit more on James Harden, who in my opinion could be the team's ultimate X factor. Cause we gotta remember that when Harden was playing his best basketball earlier this season, the Clippers looked like the best team in the NBA. He slowed down by mid-February with a noticeable drop in shot making and defensive activity, but overall in Harden, the Clippers are getting a legitimate 3rd star that they didn't have in 2021, who's definitely a huge upgrade from Reggie Jackson, who basically played that 3rd star role for LA the last time they played Dallas in the postseason. Although one concern for the Clippers is that they're now smaller at the forward spot and not as deep in general as they were in 2021. In particular, PJ Tucker is a considerable downgrade from Nick Batum. But overall, I think James Harden's offense, along with that of Norman Powell, is still an upgrade over what LA had 3 years ago. Plus, having Russell Westbrook as well as Terrence Mann also gives the Clippers more size and activity at the guard positions compared to what they had a couple years back. But then, on the other hand, the Dallas Mavericks too have been completely reconfigured as compared to their 2021 version. Yes, this Mavs team needs to pass the postseason test first, but overall, this looks like the most talented roster that Dallas has assembled during the Luka Doncic era. First, I think one of the more noticeable changes with this Dallas team is that it no longer lives and dies by the three-point shot. Well, in their 2021 playoff series against LA, the Mavs won 3 of the 4 games in which they made more three-pointers than the Clippers, and they lost 2 of the 3 games in which they made fewer three-pointers than LA. For quite some time, the Mavs role players making or missing three-point shots has often dictated the results of games, but this season, Dallas has been transformed from a team reliant on three-pointers to one that's committed on consistently getting stops on defense as well as on crashing the offensive boards, thanks to the addition of lengthy players PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, and Derrick Jones into the starting lineup to flank Luka and Kyrie. Well, it's already expected that a Luka and Kyrie-led offense will put fear into playoff opponents, but what's even scarier is that I don't think we've seen a Luka Doncic-led team possess this kind of physicality before. And I think this newfound identity for Dallas could be a real game changer for them, particularly against the Clippers in the playoffs. Cause in 2021, despite Dallas rolling up huge lineups with Kristaps Porzingis flanked by any of Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell, or Willie Cauley-Stein, the Clippers' game plan was to get into the paint to try and expose the Mavs' interior weaknesses, which obviously worked for LA. Well, the thing is, if this upcoming series was played with either Grant Williams or Richaun Holmes still on the Mavs roster, I think it would be clear that the Clippers would again try to keep attacking the paint while having success doing it. But since March 10, with Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively patrolling the paint for the team, Dallas has been the NBA's top defense, ranking first in terms of protecting the rim and also tied for 6th in the NBA in fewest points allowed in the paint. This definitely isn't the same Mavs team that the Clippers faced in 2021 or even earlier in the season. But then, aside from figuring out how to break through the Mavs' tight defense, of course, the biggest thing that the Clippers will have to worry about in this series is how they're gonna stop Luka Doncic. Well, for sure, we can already expect Luka to hunt for a lot of switches, and he seems to have mastered the art of cooking Zubats on the perimeter in particular. As per NBA advanced statistics, since the start of the 2020 season, Doncic has actually converted a whopping 48% of all his three-pointers when defended by Zubats. Overall, Luka's size and footwork gives him the option between launching a step-back 3 or getting to his spots around the paint. And honestly, during the regular season, whatever the Clippers threw at him, whether it be hedges, switches, or even double teams, didn't really work at all. But even when the Clippers had younger legs in them during their first round meetings against Dallas in 2020 and 2021, they didn't have any answer for Luka, as he put up 34, 9, and 10 on 49% shooting from the field and 39% from deep in those 13 playoff games. Well, to be fair, this current Clippers team have a lot of solid options to deploy against Doncic, and although during the regular season, Kawhi actually spent little time guarding Luka, back in the 2021 playoffs, Leonard actually drew Doncic as his primary assignment, and he did make Luka work for every bucket. The problem is, this season, I think asking Kawhi to match this version of Luka on offense while also expecting him to limit Luka on the defensive end just might be too much, especially given Kawhi's knee problems and the fact that he just finished playing one of the most loaded regular seasons of his career. But again, even if the Clippers somehow managed to slow Luka down, Luka also didn't have a safety valve like Kyrie Irving when these two teams last met in the playoffs. But now, with Kyrie, not only are the Mavs getting an experienced playoff end-of-game shot creator, but Kyrie also allows the Mavs to get even more creative with off-ball movement to work with matchups in Luka's favor. Well, to neutralize the Mavs, Coach Ty Lue could always deploy the Clippers' best 5-man unit of Kawhi, PG, Harden, Zubats, and Norman Powell, a group that has outscored opponents by a massive 18.4 points per 100 possessions, despite this lineup playing just 121 minutes in the regular season. But Ty Lue is also known to experiment with different combinations on the floor, so I think we might even see Daniel Tice, Mason Plumlee, or PJ Tucker in place of Zubats during closing lineups, or Terrence Mann instead of Powell, depending on how much Luka Doncic is cooking who's on the floor. On the other hand, for the Mavs, I think Doncic, Irving, and PJ Washington are the only locks to be part of their closing lineups, as in the middle, they could alternate between a number of bigs depending if they need Derek Lively's bounce, Gafford's dependability, or Kleber's floor spacing. Then on the wing, they can also mix and match between Dante Exum, Josh Green, and Derrick Jones Jr. Overall, the LA Clippers are a team that can thrive even while using some small ball lineups, which is why Jason Kidd's decision making in terms of his rotations will definitely be tested in this series as well. But if the last month of NBA basketball is any indication, I'm picking the Mavs to win the series in 6. Well, sure, the LA Clippers, for all their top-level talent and experience, deserves the benefit of the doubt, as they are a team that could always flip the switch, especially when healthy. And to be fair, historically, there's been a bigger correlation between playoff success and how a team played early in the season than how it played late. And the Clippers were actually the better team in the season's first and middle thirds. However, I think the huge shift in the Dallas Mavericks play after the trade deadline simply can't be ignored, with their new starting lineup outscoring opponents by a massive 15.5 points per 100 possessions, which is the 4th best mark among 37 lineups to have played at least 100 minutes after the trade deadline. So overall, I do believe that the combination of the Mavs' momentum heading into the playoffs combined with Luka's monster season just might be too much to overcome for the LA Clippers in the end. But who do you guys have winning between the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks? Feel free to drop your predictions in the comment section below, and again, if you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing as well. Again, this has been Real Balls, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.